Hello, this is Bruce Rector, the Rector Group, and I'm here today to speak with you about the Strategy Accelerator. The Strategy Accelerator is a structure that I've created to help owners of businesses to crystallize their strategy in order to drive their companies to the next level. This works for companies in virtually any industry, from manufacturing to service providers to healthcare even. Well, let's talk about crystallizing your strategy. The first thing you need to do is to understand where you are and then envision your end game. Sort of define where you want to be in, say, 18 to 24 months, the time frame that you've decided you want to look at. And then connect the dots in between those 2 points. And you do that by creating your action plan after defining where you are and where you want to be. Let's talk about understanding where you are. You have to ask the critical hard questions such as, what's my competition like? Where do they affect me the most? What are the biggest risks that I'm facing? What's my return on investment for my sales and marketing expenses and activities? What sort of issues do I have outstanding right now around, say, operations and information technology? And how do I identify key metrics or measures to track these things and make sure that I'm going the right direction in implementing my business plan later? Then you envision the end game. And the way to think about it is looking at a crystal ball and thinking about where the company's going to be. Not about how it's going to get there, but just where is it going to be in, say, 18 months or 24 months with respect to revenues. In the case of some partnerships, maybe you don't want to think about revenues, but you want to think about how much money gets distributed to the partners. For instance, the partners made $200,000 apiece last year, and in 18 months we want the company to be running at a rate where they'll take $300,000. And from that point you can kind of work backwards to what the revenues and expenses need to be. Other companies feel more comfortable talking about top-line revenues. You need to be thinking about what sales and marketing initiatives are going to be in place in 18 months. What sort of information technology infrastructure may be required in connection with healthcare companies, medical practices. You may be looking at implementing, for instance, an electronic medical record system. And what's the implication as far as how many employees are you going to have, are you targeting in that time frame? And what key strategic relationships do you wish to have entered into by then? These are certainly not everything you should be looking at, but this is just sort of a sampling of how to think about it. And then when you've done that, you can talk about what my intermediate goals are. I've defined where I am, I understand my key metrics, and a responsible person. And then we set a time of regular intervals when we want to set those metrics, those assessment points, to be able to provide feedback to the responsible person and get to our end game. And when you've done that, sort of laid out what you want to do and by what time, and by looking at your targets and the time frames, you can create specific goals and priorities with associated tasks with accountabilities. Who's going to do what by when, by whom, by when. And by doing this, you've accelerated your strategy. Something to think about is this is a tool to help effective management execute, to carry out their business plan, to get the company, whatever type of company it is, whether it's a medical practice, a manufacturing company, a service provider, to the next level. Here's my contact information. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation about the Strategy Accelerator.